And I'm Michael Jones with Variety, with the team behind In Prison My Entire Life. My whole life? My entire life.
Whole life.
Whole life. Because it's not the entire life, is it?
It's entire life.
That's my whole life. Can you give some background about the Mumia AbuJamal story so far?
So basically, Mumia AbuJamal was arrested for the murder of a police officer, Daniel Faulkner, and it happened on the day I was born, within a few minutes. And I sort of became aware of Mumia through my mother, who's very politically active and into social justice issues, and then increasingly through bands like Rage Against the Machine and the Beastie Boys, Bad Religion in the 90s. And I think I just became fascinated with the idea that this guy had been sort of away for my entire life, and the fact that he'd been in this tiny little cell, and somehow I'd found out about him and been able to hear his voice and read his writings, and I think that was the initial point of contact and the point of reference for the film.
Colin, how did this land in your lap?
Well, I'd never heard of the case. What intrigued me was that the improbability of this relationship between this half English, half American boy born in England, white boy, middle class, with this extraordinarily strange connection with a black man from America, 3,000 miles away, sitting in a prison cell through the entire time that William had been alive. And I thought there was a story to be told in that relationship.
Can you talk about your involvement with the film?
Yeah, my involvement was basically, I directed the movie, and I suppose two things really. One, I really wanted it to be Will's film and reflect his generation's point of view, I suppose, and the fact that, it's quite an intriguing commencement to this relationship, which it became a relationship. Will and we had talked many times, but, that to discover somebody's voice on the web, you can travel so far on the web, and I know that maybe the difference between my generation and Will's generation is that the web is kind of where people do their traveling to a certain extent now, right? And not go anywhere, really, physically. And yet this voice is discoverable on the web and got under your skin and was something that kind of just, with the passage of time, the passage of 25 years, motivated Will to want to get up from the chair, from in front of the computer and out into the real world to meet him.
It seems to be also about moving to two different places. You begin in England, obviously, and then you end up in Philadelphia. I've spent a lot of time in Philadelphia, and anybody who spends time in Philadelphia, you can't be not colored by Mumia and you can't be actually colored by the sense of violence in Philadelphia. It's one of the most violent cities, in America. And it has such a deep history, particularly with the MOVE bombing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So can you talk a little bit about that, about how moving from England to Philadelphia, kind of the shock, I don't know how much Philadelphia is a part of your movie.
It is very much, it's very much a starting point and a place that you have to go, as you say. And in a way, without sounding sort of trite about it, in a way, the unresolved nature of the Mumia case, if you like, the Mumia matter, seems to be, as you say, there in Philadelphia. There's unresolved tensions, and he seems to epitomise that. And the thing that shocked me, I don't know what I was expecting, but America is so full of surprises that you get to Philadelphia and you expect it to be this massive, civic centre. And actually, what really struck me was that right in the middle of town is that council chamber, and the arguments are still going on in the council chamber. In a way, there's the descendants of people from the original argument. There's sons of mayors as councillors. There's the movement that's with supporting Mumia, and there's this ongoing fight in the local. It's a local fight, and that is extremely interesting.
This is one of the very racially divided city as well. So that must have been something that not new but different for you, right?
Well, it's quite. I think, Philadelphia has a certain history, and I think that, coming from the school that I'd grown up in London, English was the third language spoken. It was like the most multicultural sort of area, growing up. And then I moved to New York when I was 12 to an all-white suburb in Long Island. So, for me, and I guess for most people, race has a long history in America, and specifically, in Philadelphia, going around some of the rundown areas of Philly now look like parts of, Soweto. It's like, it's unbelievable to see that, in this day and age, you still have such rundown communities and people still trying to fight through and change, sort of their livelihoods and still coming up against a constant struggle.
Yeah. There's a reason why David Lynch said Philadelphia is the most bizarre city he's ever been in.
Yeah.
Who said that?
David Lynch. Yeah. Do you are you keeping in touch with Mumia about the movie and the progress? And
yeah, we are. We sort of send him letters. I think it's a very, you've got to be very respectful when you make this type of film, because if he could be very, very easily exploited. Considering he's in his sort of cell, and you could do anything you wanted. You could make a film that's completely anti-Mumia and completely, go around him. But I think, he also at the same time, he kind of can't grasp what's sort of going on. He's in his little cell. And I think it's probably quite painful for him to think of all this stuff going on, and if he connects to it, it's kind of too much for him.
Sure.
So we sort of send him letters and speak to his lawyer and say this is what's going on. But in a weird way, I think he's kind of not interested. I think he kind of has his daily struggle, his daily routine of push-ups and a bit of reading and this and that. And I think thinking of all this outside of that would probably be a bit too much to grasp, I would imagine.
Wilson, thank you all for coming by.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah.
Cheers. Thank you.